Hello, and welcome to Mr. Delgado's online classroom. Today, I'm going to compare and contrast two leadership styles that can be used within the educational environment. Specifically, I would like to discuss transactional leadership and transformational leadership, and to explain the differences between the two of them within the context of education. Now, most of the content that I'm going to share with you today comes from this book. It's School Leadership That Works. Now, I would highly recommend this book for anyone interested in leadership approaches to education. In today's discussion, however, both styles of leadership, transactional and transformational, as well as others that come from this book, have often been compared with each other as they both can be accredited to the founder of modern leadership theory, James Burns. Now, at their most rudimentary core, transactional leadership has to do with trading one thing for another. Now, the Latin root for this idea would of course be a quid pro quo, which essentially means something for something. So in practice, transactional leadership consists of a leader stating, you give me this and I'll give you that. Now, conversely, in transformational leadership, just as its name suggests, this is focused on transformation and change. Now remember, these are simply terms defined at their most basic level. They can be broken down into more refined categories. So looking again at transactional leadership, there are three categories that leaders can subscribe to. The first is management by exception passive. The second is management by exception active. And the third is constructive transactional. Now, in the first category, management by exception passive, these kinds of leaders create standards and procedures, but they essentially wait for problems and major issues to arise before they start to demonstrate what most would consider leadership behavior. Excuse me. So just as their name suggests, they take a very passive approach to issues, only stepping up to meet challenges after the challenges have occurred. Now, within the context of education, this is not a very good way to lead, at least in my opinion, because why would anyone want to wait for problems to reveal themselves? It should be the desire of any leader to be proactive in their leadership approach. Unfortunately, though, this leadership style does get adopted by many new leaders, especially when they are new to a new school setting, as it is often exhibited by individuals who don't wish to rock the boat, so to speak. Essentially, this category of leadership is for those who have no desire to change the status quo and are just fine with how the school or organization is run, at least until a problem occurs. And in short, they have developed if it's not broke, why should we fix it mentality. Now, in the second category, management by exception active, just like the name suggests, it's the complete opposite of passive. These leaders are focused on the issues that have arisen and that may potentially arise. And in so doing, they set standards and monitor the behavior of those whom they supervise closely in an attempt to prevent and often contain issues. Now, sadly, these kinds of leaders are so active, they're often so active in the prevention of problems, that too often employees do not risk taking initiative on their own. Essentially, these kinds of leaders state clearly what must be done to avoid issues and expect everyone to follow their directives exactly without giving any freedom to problem solve on their own. And this style of management works best for followers who are themselves lacking in creativity, problem-solving abilities, or who simply prefer to be told what to do and how to do it. It's not something I would prefer. Now, in the third and final category, constructive transactional leadership, one can expect to see what most consider to be the most effective form of transactional leadership. Now, the leader practicing this form of leadership clearly states goals and desired outcomes, and they reward and often praise and recognize individuals when they achieve the stated goals and outcomes. Further, these leaders will seek the advice and suggestion of others, and in turn, they will provide suggestions and feedback to their employees. Essentially, this style of leadership seeks to involve the input of others within the decision-making process and positively rewards when expectations are met. And generally, expectations will be met most of the time, as others feel as if they have been given a voice in the desired outcomes. In short, it is constructive transactional leadership that is most commonly thought of when discussing transactional leadership as a category. It is the most ideal of the three categories. Now, in comparison with these three categories of transactional leadership, transformational leadership is my preferred leadership style. Transformational leadership often produces results that supersede expectations, right? You get results that go beyond expectations. Now, this is in part due to the relationships that often form between leader and follower. Now, there are 4 factors that together form the basis of transformational leadership, and these are called the 4 I's. Now, the first of these 4 is individual consideration. And this is where the leader gives one-on-one attention to individuals under their leadership. And oftentimes, these individuals may have previously felt neglected and now feel as if they have a role to play within the organization. Okay. The second of the 4 I's is intellectual stimulation. And this factor asks employees to think of old problems in new ways. Essentially, staff are asked to consider issues that they have dealt with for long periods of time and to consider new ways to address these issues. Thus, followers are challenged in new ways. Now, the third I is inspirational motivation. And this factor implies exactly what it states. The leader must motivate his followers in an inspirational way. The leader should be dynamic, they should be confident, innovative, and they should be able to ignite their followers in such a way that makes them excited to achieve the results. And finally, the fourth factor is idealized influence. In this factor, the leader must model behavior in such a way that is exemplary. Their personal achievements and accomplishments should be significant, and through their example, others should desire to themselves reach higher levels of character and achievement. Thus, this leadership style is much more than a quid pro quo relationship between leader and employee. It is specifically geared to transform an environment. And this is all the more important in the 21st century school, where diverse challenges and new technologies often force schools to change faster than before. So, if we were to apply these 2 leadership theories into a hypothetical practice, what would we see? Now, in the case of the most idealized form of transactional leadership, which is constructive transaction, we would see a leader telling his subordinates what his expectations are. He would seek their input in the creation of these expectations, and when their expectations are met, he would recognize and praise their achievements. And in praising their achievements, the desired outcome would be that others would desire to themselves gain the praise of meeting the expectations. And like stated at the beginning of this talk, it is very much a something for something relationship between leader and follower. Now, in a hypothetical scenario within educational practice for transformational leadership, we would see a leader who is able to identify both good and bad aspects within the school and first provides that one-on-one attention to the needs of each staff member. After doing so, the leader would ask them to consider their identified problems in new ways. And essentially, they would ask them to think outside of the box. Third, the leader would communicate their expectations in such a way that excites and motivates the staff to achieve these results. And finally, the leader would himself or herself lead by example, demonstrating what the ideal educator should look like through their own personal achievements. And in completing these 4 I's, the leader will have brought transformation not only to the school, but to any of the initial problems identified within the organization. So, in case you have not been able to tell, transformational leadership is my preferred leadership style. I get really excited when I talk about it. And I believe that leadership should be much more than a quid pro quo. Effective leadership should bring about change and improvement, especially in school environments where the need for change is becoming more and more necessary, almost on a daily basis. And hopefully, I've done an effective job explaining these two leadership theories. Now I leave it to you to tell me which of the two you prefer. Thank you.